Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got it!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Happy Thursday to you all. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition joins me. Welcome in as the rain has set in, but it's not raining on the Players Parade right now, as today is the first day of Name, Image, Likeness. It's like Christmas. This is like December 25th to all student athletes, Dustin. They are celebrating in droves as now the Name, Image, Likeness policies are in effect. No matter where you are, what school you go to, you are free to hang out the open for business sign.
Yeah, and we've already seen a lot of student athletes across the country. You know, we saw Graham Mertz, trademark his new logo. We saw volleyball player Lexi Sun at Nebraska. Looks like she might have a clothing line or selling some sort of T-shirt or something. And from what it's being reported, I believe from the Omaha World Herald, is that every student athlete at Nebraska is going to have the opportunity to get a deal with Runza, which is a local, I think, kind of sandwich fast food shop. So that, in addition to all the student athletes and college players kind of putting out on Twitter, if anybody wants to, use my name, image, likeness, if they want to use my social media account, just send me a DM. They're not wasting any time on this. And we talked about this yesterday. No, you can't. And we talked about this yesterday. The one thing that a lot of schools have done, Indiana's done it, Nebraska, Ohio State, a lot of other schools have launched some sort of program to help educate these student athletes, help them navigate through all this business. Because this is no longer just sports. This is going to be sports and business. So there's going to be a lot to navigate here. And it's going to be a lot for an 18, 19, 20-year-old. I think back to all the bad decisions I made at that age. I think back to all the bad decisions I made 2 weeks ago. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But, the floodgates are open. We're going to start to see a lot of new things come to fruition here because, it starts today. And we've opened up Pandora's box.
This will not be the most lucrative, but I would not mind wagering a bet that it becomes the most popular way of guys to make money from name, image, likeness. Tim points out over 4,000 athletes have signed up for, is it YOK or YOK? To play video games with an athlete. So these guys, that's all they like to do anyway. So can you imagine you're already doing it? So, hey, let this guy in. I'm making $50 or whatever.
What an easy way to make some money. I mean, where was...
Here's my question. Here's my biggest question. How much attention will this take away from what teams are trying to accomplish? When these guys start getting car deals and they've got to go cut car commercials or whatever the case is, this is not going to be a bunch of guys, but there are going to be certain ones, like on any sport, like in any walk of life, the most popular, the most successful. That's who they're going to want, unless you're Rumza. But is there going to be I can't, I'm blanking on the word I'm looking for, but is there going to be, are the teams going to, I can't imagine, a coach saying, what? You got to go to, screw that. I mean, you got to do that on your own time. So I wonder, will there be any issues with commitments and things like that intertwined across to what the teams are trying to get accomplished?
Oh, I'm sure you're going to run into that at some point down the road. I mean, it's going to be inevitable, and you're probably going to see it at a certain point. I think you would probably see this more maybe on the basketball side. I don't know. But once you get to a certain – maybe you might even see it in the football side. But once you get to a certain point in the season, let's just use – Trevor Lawrence has already been drafted. He's done at Clemson. Let's just use him as an example. Let's say last year he was going to be the number one pick in the draft. Let's say he has a lucrative deal. He's made some cash, and Clemson was 3-3 or 4-2 after the first 6 games. Is there any extra incentive for him to play those games? I mean, maybe he'll have a contractual obligation, but you might see more players opt out in the middle of the season because they do have some sort of cash flow or and they don't want to hurt their draft status. I mean, that's to an extent that had happened before. You think back to Jadeveon Clowney back in South Carolina. So I don't know if it changes that much, but I think what you're talking about, I think there's going to inevitably be some issues on that front. And what I'm interested in, Jim, is we keep talking about this is going to be the star athletes that benefit from this. I don't think that's always going to be the case. I think that you're going to get to a situation. Think about sometimes some of the most popular players on a basketball team. You might have a guy, a walk-on freshman who comes in and he plays the last 2 minutes of the blowout games, and he's a fan favorite. He might land an endorsement deal before one of the starting 5 guys because everybody knows his name. He's beloved, And so is that going to cause some sort of locker room friction? This guy's making
your uncle.
10,000.
You could be the last guy on the bench, and your uncle owns a car dealership in Kokomo.
Yep.
But I don't get the friction thing. That's tough luck. I don't want to hear that friction crap. That's just life. Not from you. I'm just saying they got to get used to it. Hey, that is life, man. You don't always, the best doesn't always get it. Normally they do, but it's rare that it doesn't happen. But the same the other way. The guy at the end of the bench, man, you can't be sitting there being jealous because the stars are getting cars or they're getting, whatever they're getting now. That was happening before. They weren't inducing the bench riders to come play for schools. Whatever schools where they've ever been accused of paying players before, they're probably not playing the guy on the bench. They're not paying him to come there. So that's not changed any.
And so where I'm curious to see is with this transfer portal being immediately eligible is people say this isn't going to be a big deal, but I think it might be. I think it could potentially be a bigger deal. You have a guy who doesn't get any sponsorship opportunities.
Got a better deal, baby.
Why don't you go up to Ypsilanti and play for Eastern Michigan? And maybe you're not going to get as much. Hey, that's a great poll, isn't it? I'm using a small market, small college to say, you know what? Yeah, you don't have maybe the opportunity you would have in Bloomington, but at Eastern Michigan, we can get you this sponsorship deal. We can, get you working with this local business, and you can be the star player of our team, and you can make a couple $1,000. I think that will play a role in some of this. Here's
one. Bringing a name from the past. I don't think this place is still in business, so if they aren't, it would be a great business to use because they're over in Richmond, Indiana, I think, which the only thing over there is an IU extension. IU Richmond, IU East, I think, University East. It's now called something else. Oh, wow. Camping World. Tom Raper RV used to be Tom Raper RV. Now it's Camping World. They're over in Richmond, I think. Yeah. Okay. There's nothing over there. Guess what? What if they decided I'm going to turn IU East into a power, and he starts offering big deals to come to little old Richmond, Indiana.
Right.
But you'd have to get a bunch of guys to come there. It's not a one guy thing. Because they're not going to come just for the money, I don't think. I think they want – that's the one thing. I don't think these guys are going to go to Ypsilanti or Richmond, Indiana, just for a payday. One might, but I just can't see unless you get a ton of guys. These guys still want to compete, man. They still want to be seen. They still want to get to that next level where the real money is. We're talking about, right, as far as I know, we're talking about I'm nice. I mean, some of these guys are going to make a nice living. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of these guys, it's not. It's going to be money that other kids can make with other jobs. Right. And that's probably going to be the bulk of it, not the 1%. I don't.
And the thing I'm going to throw out too is I think that, I talk about some of the bad and the negative aspects, but I think the positive aspect of this is I think the kids and the student athletes who are going to probably benefit the most and the ones who are going to make the most money. We talk about commercial deals and restaurant deals. I'm thinking the people who are going to make the most money are going to be, inventive. Like I said, the Nebraska volleyball player might be coming out with their own clothing line. Like they're going to be starting some sort of business model. And so there's going to be some sort of effort that those kids are going to have to put in. Yes, the Justin Fields, the Trevor Lawrences, even a kid like Michael Penix. Yeah, he might have an easier path, but this also allows, somebody to go on YouTube. If they're really good at talking about sports or giving us an inside look at what it's like to be a student athlete, they can make a profit off their YouTube. And so they're putting in maybe 30 minutes to an hour of work every week and making, $100 or whatever the case might be. So it's not just as easy as always, here's the Runza money, here's the car dealership money, here's the sponsorship money. Some of these kids are going to go on business ventures and be able to use their name, image, likeness to be able to sell their merchandise or to sell their product or their experiences or whatever the case might be. So I think there will just be a lot more of this business model. And that would be a great skill to have moving forward too. So like I said, I talk about a lot of the negative stuff because I think that there is going to be some repercussions, some negative consequences, but I also do think that there's some benefit to this as well.
And how are you going to keep the unsavories out? Because they're going to be clamoring more now. These guys are going to need CPAs. Mm-hmm. They're going to need managers unless their parents are doing this. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be a big thing, but there are going to be parents that probably pilfer. We've seen it happen. We'll hope that's not the case, but it's too easy because it happens in all walk of life. It doesn't matter. We've seen it happen at universities where professors have taken grant money. Just seen it happen it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in. It doesn't matter. So when I talk about parents, they're the same as everybody else. There's just some people that can't resist that deal, and that's going to happen to a player. What's going to happen when the first player gets really railed, screwed over by a parent or a family member, or one of these deals goes really, really sour?
And I think that's why it's so important to have these programs that these schools are launching to kind of educate them. And I'll be shocked, I don't think places in the Big Ten, I don't think schools in the Big Ten like Indiana, Purdue, Illinois, Ohio State, they're not going to have any trouble hiring, 2 or 3 accountants and saying, hey, we want you to go through this guy. He works for the university. He's going to take care of you.
Now, is that any different than the FBI probe where they're saying, hey, this guy, you should go through this guy. He will really take care of your money.
Yeah, but it's a new, I'm saying it would be an Ohio State employee, not an independent employee. He works for Ohio State. We'll pick this up. This is going to be a topic of conversation for a while in various sorts. We're going to talk about which former IU athlete up to now has missed out on the most. I mean, I know Lily King comes to mind, but let's don't forget about the Steve Alfords at his time, Damon Bailey at his time, Romeo at his time, and Lily King. We'll look at those 4. And you can throw Tim Priller in for the opposite reason, but that would have been more of a lark kind of thing. Corporates would not be coming towards Priller. Steve Alford, Damon Bailey, all over it. Romeo, maybe. Lily King, definitely. We'll talk about that a lot more. We've got Matt's back, I think. So Kristen Ari on today, but plenty to talk about, man. Back with that and much more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Yes, you do have Matt back today. He's coming on this coming segment.
The return of Maytay.
Okay, so this is real. This cannot be a 4-year fucking contract.
What's real?
Lionel Messi's contract.
Oh, yeah, the thing that RBO Sprint put up.
Yeah. It cannot be a 4-year contract.
I wonder if he meant to put 67.4 million. I mean, that could be. I mean, maybe he did.
No. It's
so it really is
674 million.
Wow.
But it can't.
Who needs that kind of money in any capacity?
I do.
Isn't it just like I would?
Oh my God! It is a fucking 4-year deal. I'm sorry. Do you know what that is a year?
It's got to be.
That's 168.5 million dollars.
I was gonna say. I was gonna guess 180, but
how are they recouping that?
He's not even in his prime anymore. That's what surprises me about that deal.
How are they recouping that?
Those soccer deals are ridiculous. I have no idea.
How are they recouping that? That's one player.
They must have a massive television deal. The soccer
to where? Mars? Huh? to Mars? I mean, it's $168 million per year.
It's the most popular sport in the world. I'm guessing.
I get that.
Mike DeCourcy would be able to break this down for us if he was coming on today.
Well, we'll talk about this next week. I don't understand how they could pay those kind of exorbitant salaries. First of all, and wow, that's almost disgusting. I hope he's a hell of a philanthropist.
He always said he wanted to retire in the United States in the MLS. I don't know how close he is to that, but they ain't gonna be paying that kind of money here in the MLS.
He better be.
I will pay you 1% of that.
I will give you $1.
Yeah, he should play a few years for free, I'd say.
Yeah, he'll be playing for fun once he comes to the MLS. He won't be worried about money. I mean, I'm sure he ain't worried about money now. He's just good enough to get that much.
You know why? He was for the endorsement.
Oh, here's Matt.
Mate!
Yo!
See there? There we go.
What's up, my brother?
Fieldhouse and Carmel.
Oh, I'll go ahead and bring us back.
Craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this rainy Thursday, but we've got the return of Maytay. Matt Taylor's back, so that brings all the sunshine in. Matt Taylor, how are you, brother? Well, I guess he's fine. Matt, you still there, brother? I can hear his background, so we'll wait for him to join us. But Dustin Schutte, as we wait for Matt to jump on, which he's there. I think he may have stepped away, but what were we talking about right at the end?
We were talking about the CPA name, image, likeness stuff, and the accounting and all that.
Matt played. I mean, I wonder he sure lost his. He could have got some of that name, image, likeness business.
I'm gonna have him rejoin.
Yeah, he missed out on that a little bit.
That Franklin College money.
Hey, man. He could have been the star, FC star over there at Franklin. See, you got a smaller marketplace to fight.
That's right.
So he's got it's a smaller market, Franklin, to fight for dollars, but there's a lot less dollars in Franklin than
and I believe
to go around.
when Matt was playing there, Franklin was on the rise to power in the HCAC. I think he's the one that put him back on the map. I remember.
Oh, of course.
When Franklin would come to Manchester, that was a game that was. I mean, every game was circled when you played at Manchester because they were so bad. But
you there now, Matt?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Well, we can, brother. We were just talking about how you were single-handedly responsible for the return of Franklin football. And how you should have been able to cash in on the name, image, likeness protocols are now being put in place. And so somehow maybe you can go back and cash in on that.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure I would have been the spokesperson or the face of the Jeff Street Lounge. You know, I mean, you talk about quarter beer night and popcorn and free pizza on a Wednesday and Thursday. I mean, that screams my name. I'm all over that. I'm not sure how I missed out on that, but if I could retroactively go back and cash in on free beers during the week at the Jeff Street Lounge or the Grill Bar there on Jeff Street, sign me up for it. I need a time machine or something.
Yeah, well, I think you should just go back and just have them retroactively sign you.
I think back in 2006 through 2008, I could have been the mayor of downtown Franklin. I think people would have voted me in, but as soon as I graduated, the town it would have fallen apart, because all my platform would have just been good times, good music, and good times. I wouldn't have focused on the economy or anything else, just good times.
That's a question with his name, image, likeness. For the guys that get the good deals, the really good deals, are they going to let grades slide? Or are they going to let class slide if their intentions to be a one and done? There's some repercussions that could come out of this.
You know, I've been sort of following this from afar, and I really haven't, truth be told, dove too deep into it. So I'll just ask you guys, like, who is this really affecting? Like, it's probably the 1% of college athletes, and by that I mean star players on star teams in star programs. You know, like the quarterback at Alabama, or the quarterback at Clemson or Ohio State, or the star player at Duke or North Carolina or Kentucky. Outside of that, who's really going to be missing out, or who's really going to be taking advantage of name, image, and likeness? And the reason I say that is, you know, I'm in professional sports in Indianapolis, and there's really no one on the Colts capitalizing on name, image, and likeness. I mean, there's not a lot of corporations in town utilizing professional athletes for these kinds of things. So maybe I'm naive, but I just don't think this is going to change a whole lot.
And we were talking about this, Matt. I think you're right when you talk about advertising dollars, companies wanting student athletes to be able to use their social media accounts to promote something. But I think where you're going to see maybe the big change is now student athletes can go out and maybe they can launch a business model. They can, you know, a clothing line, or they can use their YouTube, or we talked about earlier in the show, you can set up a gaming account and somebody can pay you $50 and you can play a video game with them or something like that. So
That's
I feel
cool.
like
That's cool.
I feel like there's some sort of, a lot of what's being talked about is, you know, these kids are going to make quote unquote $50,000 to shoot a car commercial. And I think you're right. That's going to be the 1% of the 1%. Where I think that this will help student athletes is if you want to create some sort of business model, if you want to create a clothing line, if you want to start a YouTube channel, you're going to have that opportunity. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a star player. It can be anybody that, you know, if they have a camera and a YouTube account and they got a good personality, they can go on and kind of talk about their experience playing for the Indiana Hoosiers or playing for the Wisconsin Badgers. So I think that there's a bigger pool that it will affect, but when we're talking strictly about the advertising dollars, that's where I think you're right.
Yeah, no, I did not realize that. So I think that's a really good point. You know, I think a good example of that might be like if I'm a kid that's really attracted to the IU football program because of what they're doing now with Tom Allen. If I'm growing up in Indianapolis or a kid in Bloomington and I'm 10, 12 years old and I'm deciding to kind of go all in on athletics with football, and I want to really engage with the team. I think a really cool way to do that, like let's say, you know, Micah McFadden, who's a very, very good player, but not a player that you would think would be, you know, selling cars in Bloomington or Indianapolis with the name, image, and likeness stuff. You know, maybe you hop on PlayStation virtually with him and play and interact with him. That's a really cool idea. I did not realize that, but I think that's a really fascinating thing about this. And it's capitalism, man. Like why should kids that are trying to earn a degree and do it the right way in college, why should they not get some extra scratch by being able to do stuff like this, especially with how the world has changed in the last year and a half with making money virtually. I think it's a really cool opportunity, and I think it's a good change, in my opinion, for college athletics.
I think the biggest concern is there are too many people that think 10 points of how many athletes are going to be car shopping today. Very, 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 very few to none.
Right.
This is not.
Is Ray Skillman marketing to 18-year-olds? Not really.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. They're gonna, some of these guys, and it's the 1%, man, that are gonna really benefit, and that's life. That's how it always is. But Twitter, for example, though, is worth $1,000 per 10,000 followers. They can basically get that a month, I think, because of the commercials that are on there. And it's the same with the YouTube account. Once you hit 1,000 followers, you monetize that, but they can benefit from that. And $1,000 a month, that sounds like a lot. It's $250 a week. Yeah, but I think too many people think these kids, what do they think they're going to go out and do with this? I mean, first of all, you don't have a lot of time while your season is going on.
Right.
And just because you have money doesn't mean they're probably just going to buy stuff. I mean, that doesn't mean you're going to go out and get in trouble. They're just going to buy stuff with it.
Or they could actually they could be educated, mature adults and save it.
Some of them will, but I'm just saying, so they buy stuff. Who cares?
Right.
Who cares if they go buy clothes? I don't care. Who cares if they go buy nicer shoes? I don't care.
Right.
I just don't care. I mean, because it just comes down to the cheating thing. Well, those schools that we thought were doing it before, that's not changing. So I don't think that the overall change is happening. It may hurt schools like Indiana from getting, when they're trying to get to that 5-star guy, maybe that hurts that a little more because an Alabama or someone can still come at him. But maybe it levels the playing field, Dustin. I don't know. Maybe you have a Ray Skillman who helps out for that, or more importantly, Andy Moore Honda, who comes in and helps out with that. But it could level the playing field. I don't know. We don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah, well, again, maybe I'm naive a little bit, but I just don't think it's going to change a whole lot because, I mean, kids that want to win national championships and be groomed to go to the NFL, they're already going to Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson already. I mean, they're already getting the elite of the elite. I mean, their depth chart is so much deeper than most schools. And so now, and obviously with that, they have rabid fan bases. And so, if a kid says I can make $1,000 a week per 10,000 followers on Twitter, and I can go to Alabama and get that money very quickly just by being, the defensive tackle or the starting safety at Alabama, they were already going to go there anyway. So I don't think, again, I just don't think it's going to change a whole lot. I mean, unfortunately, college basketball, college football sort of drives the ship. You might have an outlier like a Lily King, who's a swimmer, who's obviously gained a ton of popularity and notoriety and fame for her Olympic accomplishments. But outside of that, there just aren't, I hate to say it, and I don't mean to offend anybody, I'm just trying to be real. Like, there's just not a lot of people that I don't think you're going to get a lacrosse player with 10,000 followers. I don't think you're going to get a soccer player with 10,000 followers. I mean, I just don't think it's going to change all that much in terms of where kids are deciding to go to school based on, how things operate right now. I still think Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, the blue bloods in football, the blue bloods in basketball are still going to get the same players or the same caliber of players because they are magnets. Those programs are magnets for kids like that because of the success they can have and the futures they can be set up with by going to those programs.
I do have one question, though, and I agree with you, Matt, on that completely. But to both of you, what do you think that for sports like soccer, where Indiana has been a dominant program, but another school now who would really like, you've got someone who owns, you've got like an Andy Moore in someplace else who their soccer programs have not been, but he's like, man, I'm a big soccer fan. I want to help drive this program, and starts an NIL deal for soccer players to try to draw them away. I think smaller sports, someone could potentially make a difference in a program in that regard. Maybe not, but very, very potentially.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know as much as you guys do on the subject matter, just with it being amateur sports. And I just, quite frankly, I've been on vacation the last 2 weeks, and this has all kind of popped up and boiled to the surface during that. So,
speaking of vacation, where'd you go?
So the week before last, we were down in Florida, down at Clearwater Beach, and had
nice.
it was great. We had a really good time. We had crummy weather for Florida. And then there's this thing, and I had really never even heard of it. I didn't even know it existed, but this phenomenon called red tide. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but
that kills the fish and right?
Yeah. So I had never experienced it or heard of it. It's as far as I know, it's a bacteria that grows in the water somehow, and it's close to the shore. So yeah, you anything swimming in those waters, it rolls up to the shore. I mean, you had a bunch of unfortunately dead fish and dead sea life on the beach, and the water was very, very dark and not very appealing. So there wasn't a lot of beach time, but we made the best of it. And then this past week we were up in Michigan on the lake in New Buffalo, Michigan. So great times. And so, excited to be back, excited to, have the 4th of July this weekend with the long weekend. And then after that, it's sort of the mentality goes back to football, and you start prepping, mentally for training camp, which starts in about 3 weeks. It's crazy to say.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I was looking at I had to pull the calendar off the wall because I'm a visual person. I need to look at it. But today is July 1st, of course, with the NIL going into effect. But that means 2 weeks. Well, actually, 3 weeks. 3 weeks from now, Big Ten Media Days here in Indianapolis. As you're at Lucas Oil, by the way. But we're only 3 weeks from Big Ten football media days, and then it's on from there.
No doubt. Like in my mind, I sort of shut off the summer July 4th weekend. As soon as that's over, you start prepping for training camp. It's for the Colts. It's 19 days, 19 open practices up at Graham Park. So for the most part, training camp's going to be normal, how it used to be, going back to 2019. Really the only difference in camp this year that fans are going to suffer from is that there's just no autographs from players due to the lingering effects of COVID-19. There's still a handful of protocols in place. So there's going to be no autographs, no pictures with the players. So I know that's kind of a drag, and quite frankly, that's a big draw, for fans to come up and get to Graham Park to experience and have that. But outside of that, I mean, you can still watch practice. There's going to be no limits on crowd sizes up there. You don't have to test or, prove that you have the vaccine or anything like that. You don't have to wear a mask because it's all outside. So it's incredibly exciting to get back to Graham Park in Westfield. It's pretty centrally located. It's pretty easy to get to, in and out. Graham Park is absolutely beautiful and pristine. So it's going to be really exciting to get back up there. And then the news yesterday, up in these parts in my neck of the woods in Marion County, everything's basically lifted. You don't have to wear a mask anymore, full capacity at bars, restaurants, gyms, museums, things like that. And then also 100% capacity at, Pacers games, at Hinkle Fieldhouse, for Butler basketball, for Colts games at Lucas Oil Stadium. So it was a really good, positive week of news for the Colts with the announcement of going to Graham Park for training camp, 19 open practices that are free and open to the public, and then 100% capacity this year at home games.
Yeah, I think the Indianapolis 500 did a ton for sports with COVID. 135,000 people and 19 cases. of COVID came out of that. So that's a pretty remarkable number there. And I think that has done a great thing for sports in general, but just for everything. I mean, and it's great to hear that Indianapolis is open and getting everything is getting back to normal, because it's going to still take a minute for people to get back to some habits.
Oh, I totally agree. And, we've talked about this before. I live 10, 15 minutes from downtown Indianapolis, and it's just been kind of a drag to see it not be the same or not as vibrant as, we've known it to be or accustomed to. And I'm excited that, for Colts games this year, all the bars and restaurants should be packed, and they're going to, get some of that money back and help the economy and just kind of boost the energy and the vibe downtown. I'm excited to see it kind of return to, what I love about downtown is just there's always something to do. There's always people out. For a while there, obviously it was kind of a ghost town, and I think a lot of cities and markets around the country were dealing with that. And just to be able to kind of feel safe again, to go down there and take my kids and walk around, or go grab a bite to eat, or take them to the playgrounds around downtown and the canal, and walk around down there. It's going to be really, really fun. And I'm with you. Like, had the Indianapolis 500 not gone as successful as it did, there would have been even more pause. There would have been even more of a conservative approach to look at this. And quite frankly, the Colts were, or I should say, the city of Indianapolis was the last NFL franchise market to have full capacity, to be given the green light to bring back 100% fans at their venue. So, we were all kind of thinking it was going to trend this way. I'm glad that it did. Better late than never. But I'm just happy to have normalcy returning to sports, because last year it was, as we all know, just beyond weird, very bizarre to call an NFL game at an NFL stadium with only 12,000 people there. It's better than nothing, because a lot of venues didn't have anybody at their games. But it felt sort of like a glorified high school state championship game, and kind of even worse than that, because of about 12,000 fans, they were all kind of spread out all over the stadium. So the noise just sort of, dissipated, and really couldn't, climax together with the decibel level. So just to get 60,000 people in there going crazy in big moments is going to be so refreshing. It's going to be a breath of fresh air. And I don't think I ever took it for granted beforehand, but I'll definitely never take it for granted now going forward after a season like last year.
Absolutely, Matt. I know you got to run. Look forward to getting you back on next week and start talking about training camp as we get closer to that as well.
Indeed. I appreciate you guys. Have a good day. Happy 4th of July.
Thank you. Oh, have a great weekend. That's right. Have a happy 4th of July, man. Great talking to you. Matt Taylor from the Colts joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We got more coming up. Let's see, we've got Chris Denari is going to join us, but so much more to talk about yet, man. To the Jalen Williams situation, and plenty more. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for
I would say definitely do that topic about the former players and how that would affect them. That would be a really good clip for YouTube.
What former players?
You were talking before Matt Taylor came on, saying how would name, image, and likeness, how would it have affected like Steve Alford or Damon Bailey?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good topic. Who would have been the players that benefit the most?
Yeah, former players that benefit the most. That's what you were calling it. Is there more development on that Jalen Williams thing? I heard you say that before we went to break.
No, we didn't. We just kind of didn't talk about it yesterday.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, because I've been nothing but positive, and I'm like,
Well, you don't. Well, you don't want to say something and then end up being.
Well, there's nothing.
Well,
I mean, there's nothing for me to add.
because there's no hard evidence on
that's what I'm saying. There's really no point to talk about it.
Yeah.
So you don't want to
talk about it yesterday since it was announced.
Right. You don't want to say something that could like make anybody look bad.
Yeah, especially if it's not true. Hopefully, it's not.
Well, I wouldn't say anything. It's not true. I'm not making stuff up.
Well, no, I know. We saw John Blau reported it. I was just saying, if you accidentally say something like, I don't know, there's no reason to even hypothesize what we could say, honestly. Yeah, someone said, actually, you can wait and pull this up for the show, but the Watt shot for Watford would have made him some bank. I mean, look at all the crap they used for that with the popcorn boxes and everything.
Well, I'll save that for the show, but that's to me it's
could have coined that phrase.
Yeah, he could have coined that phrase, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's
or not coined it, but could have trademarked
made
it.
Money off of it or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month, or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
How's everybody doing on this Thursday? Hope you're inside, staying dry because it's rainy around central and southern Indiana. And that could be the case throughout the day. Unfortunately, it's men's league tonight, man.
Oh,
I was ready. I got the new driver regripped, got the new swing going, and I was ready to bust it out.
Not tonight.
Does not look to be. Look to be in the cards exactly for me, unfortunately. So, but we'll see. We'll see. A great topic with this NIL. Steve Alford, Damon Bailey, Romeo Langford, Lily King. Big time IU athletes that, or, Rick Mount at Purdue or Caleb Swanigan. I don't think Purdue athletes would draw as much. They don't get as much attention. I don't mean that as a slight. They don't get as much attention generally. But getting back to wonder which IU athlete would, and I think it just depends because they appeal to different audiences, corporate, kids, age, race. I mean, you can put everything into that, and it matters. It all matters.
Well, I think in today's age, to me, moments sell more than players, student athletes. So you look at Michael Penix, the reach, whatever you want to call it. If he could have partnered up with one of the t-shirt companies that put that play on a t-shirt and said, you know what, I'm going to trademark this. You guys make the shirt. We'll split it 50-50 or however you're going to do that. He would have been able to make some money. He still can now. Yeah, exactly. He still can now. Christian Watford hitting the Watt shot to beat Kentucky. If you want to really go back, 30-some years, Keith Smart, the shot against Syracuse. That probably would have been a big money maker.
Probably. That's a national championship winning shot, buddy.
If he could have worked with an artist or a photographer and said, you know what, I'm going to trademark this shot. You do your thing. We'll split this 50-50. I think that moments are going to sell more than players. So if you have a big time moment in a big time game, I mean, you just think about this is in the NFL, but think about that catch that David Tyree made on the top of his helmet from Eli Manning in the Super Bowl to beat the Patriots. Imagine if that had happened in a college game. You probably wouldn't remember the player who made the catch or maybe even the quarterback, but you remember that moment. And so if a player can trademark that or, turn that into a profit, I don't see a problem with that. And like I said, the great example is right there in Bloomington with Michael Penix. But there's some athletes, maybe Kyle Schwarber. That's another guy who maybe could have profited off name, image, likeness. I don't know. There's a lot of really good athletes that have come through Indiana. Change the game.
I think they still could benefit from it. Kyle Schwarber could benefit right now selling IU merchandise.
Yep. Yep.
Selling
it anyway.
You ever seen an IU jersey for sale? A baseball jersey for sale?
You could probably do a red and white one.
I'm just saying, I don't understand why this is not. I've had this conversation before, and it has to do with they're forced to buy from Adidas. Adidas doesn't want to produce X amount. It's so many other things into it. But yeah, as a person, I don't know now if you're a Kyle Schwarber, can you get permission from Indiana to use the logo on a red and white jersey?
That's probably the bigger issue. That's probably
but Indiana would give you permission, but you have to pay them a royalty. Right. But do you get around the Adidas thing?
I don't know. That's a great question.
See, there's so many facets to this, man. A lot of ins and outs. To use the dude reference.
Another player, Antoine Randall. He's a guy.
Yeah, man. That's another big time one.
Probably
but
Tevin Coleman.
We'll see how. But at IU, it's going to be basketball. The basketball players are going to dominate. They will always dominate. Jersey sales.
Yeah. That's going to be I think that's a big one. The jersey sales on the basketball end.
But jersey sales that don't have names on them. So they can now probably sell their own jersey, but can they get the word Indiana across the front? It's the name of a state, and that's it. A red and white jersey with the name Indiana across it. And their name on the back. Can they sell those?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, Nike has done it. Champion has done it. Adidas has done it with the NBA. I don't know what would be that much different now that you have the name, image, likeness. If Indiana were to put names on the back of the jerseys, I don't know what would stop them from doing that.
Indiana's not going to put names on the back of the basketball jerseys.
Well, then my guess is Adidas wouldn't do it either. But I'm saying, okay, so let's
I'm talking about the individual players.
I mean,
can they get their guy to go out and get themselves their own red and white jersey with Indiana on the front and their name on the back?
I would guess that would probably be a bigger Adidas issue. I don't know.
But see, Adidas doesn't have a contract with any of these players, and these players don't have a contract with Adidas.
I don't know.
There's so many facets, man. That's the point. There's so much that's going into it.
So my point is, just to clarify my point, let's just use Purdue as an example. They do have names on the back of the jerseys. I don't think that there would be an issue with, I think they're Nike. I'm not sure. There shouldn't be an issue. Nike does that for the NBA jerseys they sell. I don't see how it would be any different for a college if they do have the names on the back. I don't know.
Did we mention this already? I know I meant to, if not, but former coach Lemonis, IU baseball coach Chris Lemonis wins the national championship with Mississippi State. They were down. It didn't look good after game 1 to Vanderbilt. Then they tied it after game 2 and just smoked them last night in game 3. I think it was 9-0. Just win going away, man, to win their first national championship ever. But congratulations to former IU baseball coach Chris Lemonis. Let's see. We got a no, we're good. Parker Stewart. Oh, yeah. Male Scholar Athlete of the Month, Parker Stewart. Yesterday, saw that come out. Haven't heard his name a lot. He's been a guy that we're talking about all that could happen for the basketball program, but he's under the radar we didn't see him last year, which I probably don't blame him. He would have wasted a season playing under that. So now you see why he's smart. This is a smart kid. He's like, I ain't wasting a season under this crap. I'm going to wait until the guys come in that can do something. So he's very, very smart for that, but congratulations on that. Marcus Carr withdraws from the NBA draft, stays in the transfer portal from Minnesota. That is man, he's going to be a hot commodity.
Yes, he will.
I mean, that dude's good. I mean, Minnesota is so screwed. They're starting from dead scratch.
Yeah.
I mean, dead scratch. I kind of understand. I guess they needed to move on from Richard Pitino, but I'm like, but what are you going to do? Because what about Minnesota is inviting what unless you bring in a coach that is a name brand coach, if you bring in another Richard Pitino, unless you just happen to catch the young up and comer, I don't know, man. It's hard to recruit to Minnesota. Now, I guess the transfer portal will help that, but I don't care. I'm with, man, it's too cold.
Well, since the Clem Haskins era, and we know how that kind of ended, Minnesota has not, I mean, they've not just been consistent. We've seen, was it Dan Munson, Tubby Smith, Richard Pitino. There have been some good coaches there, and you just, I don't know if expectations are too high. You can always aim to do better. Yeah, he had a nice long run at Minnesota. It was probably time to move on. I'm interested though to see if Marcus Carr follows Richard Pitino out to New Mexico, because he landed that job pretty quickly, or if he's going to go with some other program. So he's a big name. He's a great player. I'm really interested to see where he lands.
I kind of agree with Chris. I wonder if we're just making a bigger deal of this name, image, likeness right now because it's new. It's like the transfer portal. Let it settle down, man. Just let it settle down. It'll find its, water finds its level. Let it settle down.
You know what the problem is it was approved in the summer when we have nothing else to talk about. And so that's why it's, if this had happened mid football season, we'd be talking about it, but probably not this fervently. I think it's because the NCAA has kept, I've got to stop calling it the NCAA. It is the NCAA, but by that, I mean these presidents of these universities. It's not Mark Emmert. I have long railed on Mark Emmert, and I really should not, because if you put me in his position, I'd probably do the same exact thing. Exactly what these people are paying me $3 and $4 million a year to say. Yep.
If they wanted me to be a puppet for $3 and $4 million, that's about the only way I could ever be a puppet. Other than that, it's going to be, it's like trying to hold me back from saying the truth. But he's paid to be a figurehead for these universities who did not want this, who does not want this. They want to act like that they're all behind it now, but that's bull. Because if they were, it would have been done years ago, and their plan would have been in place. So it didn't. So July 1st did not come crashing down at July 1st at midnight, which is exactly what happened.
Which, and this is the interesting thing to me, because the bigger fear was among presidents, athletic directors, what have you, the NCAA. The bigger fear was colleges were going to have to pay student athletes. Like they were going to have to pay them an hourly wage or a salary or something like that. So why wouldn't they have wanted many years ago to jump out in front of this NIL and be like, you know what? If this deters us from having to actually hand out money to these student athletes, give them more of a paycheck, why wouldn't you be on board with that? I mean, I agree with you. We could have had enough movement 20 years ago, maybe not 20 years ago, but definitely in the last 10 years. I remember it started at Northwestern. We could have had some sort of gradual thing in place where we saw this coming, but instead everybody dragged their feet and suddenly they're all behind it now. So it's just been a weird year with the transfer portal, with NIL, everything just changing so fast. But I mean, I guess it all or nothing.
Buddy, how much money would Moyer's block made on a poster? That's still the greatest. That's still to me personally is one of the greatest sports pictures in my mind. Muhammad Ali standing over Sonny Liston is number one to me, always will be. But that Moye block will always be up there. You got 6'4" Moye and 6'8" Carlos Boozer, what it meant, and the purity, the beauty of that block. It's a beautiful picture. It's just one that and the other picture they have in the clubhouse up at Eagle Point. It's a picture of Bob Knight and about 6 members of the 76 team. It's in black and white. They're walking up a street, possibly in Philadelphia. It's they're just in street clothes. Bob Knight's in an overcoat. It's just those are my top 3 favorite sports pictures of all time. What else was I going to click on? Oh, we're about to hit a break. So someone asked, could a kid go buy his own jersey from a sports store and sell it for more if he signed it and took it to an auction? But I mean, just selling something for more, I believe, falls under the pretense of scalping.
Yeah.
Which is illegal.
Price gouging, yeah.
But you could sign it, take it to an autograph session or a sports store, and the value is what the value is, I guess. So there's ways around anything, man. We got to take a break. We got lots more coming up. This conversation is not going to go away. It's going to be an interesting one. But back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're
Excuse me.
Oh, so the Suns are going to the finals.
Suns won. Finals.
Suns over the Clippers.
Hawks and Bucks 2-2. They probably play tonight. Let's see, tonight's Thursday.
You know what?
Saturday night.
Now
I'm gonna miss that game.
They don't play till Saturday?
Who, the Hawks and Bucks?
Yeah.
I think they play tonight and then Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Which that means I'm gonna miss it because I'm watching fireworks on Saturday.
Oh my! Don't miss the fireworks.
I didn't have them last year.
Oh my! We
it's
must
a big-
make up for that.
It's a big deal down here. Let me tell you.
Oh God! They don't down in. Tell him, John.
Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah, have you ever been to Thunder over Louisville?
Thunder over Louisville. No.
Easily, and it's not even
North America's
best
largest fireworks
show.
display.
Yes, best fireworks show in the U.S. and probably all of North America, like you were saying.
Oh, whatever. Hey man, we're sitting here debating fireworks in Kennesaw, Georgia,
versus Louisville.
But more important things, and I'm only talking to the people that matters. I think I got my swing worked out, Chris.
Oh, you do? Good.
Oh my God, it's not. Oh, the fun of playing that game had left me Saturday. I wanted to break every club in my bag. I mean, I wanted to go full. What's his name?
John Daly?
No,
Club in
the movie. The Crazy
Tin Cup.
Well, yeah, I wanted to go full tin cup. But I've never had a tip be more instantaneously impactful and remain that way. And it was amazing. Just lifting my club on my backswing I was doing it. Now I'm sweeping it back, keeping it as low to the ground, and it has straightened every shot that I hit.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's incredible.
Right. I'm bringing us back in.
Cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back here on this rainy Thursday. Joined now by the great Chris Denari. As the NBA playoffs continue, man, the Suns they're going to get a little bit of a break because they're already in the finals, but the Hawks and the Bucks are letting their injuries kind of turn this series into a better series, I guess. I don't know if this series would have been as good, but it's kind of a weird one.
Yeah, you've got the two leaders that are hurt right now in the Eastern Conference. Giannis, we'll see. It'd be highly doubtful, I guess, if he would play tonight. But the good news is it does not look like that knee has any structural damage. It was just hyperextended. And then Trae Young's been out. And you're right. You go back to last night. The Phoenix Suns were last in the playoffs in 2010. And they went 10 straight years outside the playoffs. And you have to give a lot of credit to Chris Paul and his leadership. Former Pacer James Jones is the general manager who's put it all together. Monty Williams has done a great job. They've got two young stars in Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. That's what I've enjoyed about this NBA postseason. We've talked about it the last few weeks. Teams maybe you didn't expect to be here. There are a lot of bright young stars. I think it's good for the health of the game. So many people, knew that, the last 5 to 8 years it was Golden State and wherever LeBron James was in the finals. But I think you've seen that there are a lot of talented players in this league, and we're seeing it each and every night.
This is where this team, specifically the Suns, is the team that the Pacers could be. You just mentioned Devin Booker being the Robin to Chris Paul's Batman, for less of a better analogy. But and he was the number 1 pick a few years ago, number 13 pick a few years ago, which is the pick that the Pacers have coming up. And we've talked about him as an example of the guys, Spider Mitchell, that you can get at that level. But the Pacers are going to have a Chris Paul, a solid, good veteran to fill that role. And that's not to change subjects, but man, this is such a perfect example of that. Who's going to be the Pacers' Chris Paul, or will they go get a Chris Paul?
Well, I think the good thing is we can talk about Rick Carlisle. Isn't it funny how last Thursday we were on talking about speculation and we mentioned Rick could be the new head coach of the Pacers. Then a few hours later, it was made official. He met with the media yesterday. I had a chance he was with the media for about an hour. I thought he was outstanding. I think he gives the Pacers everything they're looking for right now, Jim and Dustin, from a leadership perspective. I mean, he's won a title. He's been successful wherever he's been. If you think about it, 16 years ago, the Pacers won 61 games when he was the head coach. I just think he'll be able to relate to this locker room. And I think the critical thing will be as he forms his assistant coaching staff. I think he's zeroed in on a few guys or gals. And I think there's going to be one person that's probably been an NBA head coach that'll be his associate head coach. So I think part of the leadership will come from the coaching staff, and that will bleed into this roster. He said yesterday he thinks it's a really good roster. It's got a lot of young veterans. He believes that Turner and Sabonis can play together. You have to sort of maybe work in how you stagger them, but believes that they can play together. So there's probably more of a chance that they run this group back together with maybe some changes on the side. But this is a franchise that has been in the playoffs. They had great success back in 13-14 when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Nobody's happy with not making the playoffs as they did this year. Ownership wants to win, and I think this was a great first step for the Pacers. And back to your question, Jim, I think there are some leaders in that locker room, but I think the coaching staff can help bring some of that out of them.
Chris, I was really happy and excited. You probably could have heard me shouting when they hired Rick Carlisle, because in the past, you look at who the Pacers have lost as a head coach. Larry Brown was a head coach, didn't win a championship with the Pacers, goes on to win a championship with the Pistons. And then Rick Carlisle, the head coach, wins a championship with the Mavericks. And then Frank Vogel obviously wins a championship with the Lakers. So the Pacers have always seemed to have a coach go on and do great things. And now even Nate McMillan has a chance to get to the NBA Finals. So bringing in a coach with that championship experience and listening to that press conference yesterday, I was even more excited because I thought he talked about some of the things we had talked about. He compared this team to his first Pistons team. You know, they had all the pieces. They maybe didn't have that alpha male or that leader, but eventually they brought in a player like a Rasheed Wallace, who was a good player, but he just kind of demanded the respect of the locker room. And it sounds like, as you mentioned, he likes a lot of the pieces. He likes the mentality. He says that they want to win. They just might need that one leader. Maybe that guy's in the locker room needs to be more vocal, or maybe they need to bring somebody in. But I got the sense that he thinks that this is an organization that can win big right now.
Well, I think it starts on the defensive end. I mean, this team was good enough last year offensively. And this is where I would be counter to some of the people that think this group can't play defense. 2 years ago, they were the sixth best defense in the NBA. Now, granted, you had Dan Burke, who's now in Philadelphia, but with the same personnel, you were a pretty good defensive team. And last year, they took a step back. They were probably 15th or 16th. And while the offense improved, the defense regressed, and that's where you had your issues. So I would doubt that you would have 13 players return like you did a year ago. But I still think it'll probably be double digits. I think there will probably be some changes. I mean, two critical pieces that I know they would like to have back are TJ McConnell and Doug McDermott. Those are two guys that are unrestricted free agents. They have the opportunity, to go anywhere that they want. I do know that both of them like Indiana. I think if you think about Doug McDermott, 4 years ago, he spent his last half of the year in Dallas with Rick Carlisle. And Doug says that he is really responsible for unlocking his game. And the only reason he did not return to Dallas, they wanted him. They just could not fit him into their cap situation. And the Pacers were able to get him. So I would have to believe that Doug would be pretty excited to play for somebody like Rick Carlisle. And, hopefully that'll happen.
And the other thing, I listening to that press conference and kind of putting the pieces together, the other thing I like about this is, to me, I got the sense that Rick Carlisle, this is not just another job. This is coaching the Indiana Pacers. He has deep ties to the organization, having, been an assistant coach under Larry Bird, having coached the team previously. Getting so close to the mountaintop in the late 90s and early 2000s, both as an assistant, as a head coach. And I think even this comment was made a sense of almost unfinished business. So I get the sense that a lot of times with NBA coaches, it can be just another job in another city. But I don't get that sense with Rick Carlisle. He even mentioned, the last time he was here, his daughter was born in between games 2 and 3 of one of the playoff series. So I think that he not only is he a great head coach with great experience, he's coming into a community and into a city and an organization that means a lot to him.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dustin. This does mean a lot to him, and I think it will be reciprocated by the fans. Everywhere that I've gone, when I've stopped off at the gas station, at the convenience store, and I run into people who know me, they're excited about Rick Carlisle coming. And I think the organization, after this year with the pandemic, the lack of fans in the building, the lack of energy around the team late in the year, they needed a boost. And this is the first step in the boost. It doesn't guarantee you anything, but I do think it guarantees you that you will have a head coach, you will have a staff that I believe will really be relatable to this group. And so I'm excited. I thought he was really good yesterday. And for me, this will be my 16th year doing Pacers basketball. And in my first season, that was Rick's last year with the Pacers. So I have a relationship with him. I'm looking forward to doing that again with him. And like I said, I just think it was a great hire, and he's the right person at the right time. And Jim, I would say this, in the state of Indiana, I think the two coaching hires that have been made this spring and summer, Mike Woodson at IU and Rick Carlisle with the Pacers, that's the boost that the fan bases needed, right? Because I learned a long time ago, Ralph Lawler, the longtime voice of the Clippers, who retired just a couple of years ago. Think about it. The Clippers, they weren't very good for a long, long time. And he always said, you have two things you can do as a broadcaster. You can sell championships or you can sell hope. And I think hope is the thing that fans really relate to. And I think in Indiana here in the spring and the summer, people have been reinvigorated by their basketball teams. There's more hope now with both Mike Woodson at IU and Rick Carlisle with the Pacers.
Great point, Chris. Truly, because, of course, with Indiana, we know that fan base they've been there, been to the mountaintop. The Pacers haven't been there yet, but they've been close.
Yeah.
But the fan bases have never left them, and they know that. This is a team that they don't get those great draft selections because they don't tank. They don't do the things we talked about. They could have tanked this year, but they fought to the bitter end, and I think the fans appreciate that. But speaking of the draft, we're 4 weeks away from it, basically, right now, and it will come down to who do they decide to take, and of course that's going to be determined by the 12 picks in front of them. But shooting guard is something, I don't know. They got with Karis LeVert, he's done a great job, but that kid from Turkey, Alfred Sengun, I think, he's kind of a game changer. But the other two guys are Corey Kispert, if he happens to be available, or Keon Johnson, who had just blew that vertical out of the water, set a new vertical leap record there. But what direction do you think that they need to go to better help team chemistry right now?
It's a great point. I mean, at 13, I mean, it's always a possibility that they use it in a trade. I mean, do they feel like they need to add a young piece to this roster? I'm intrigued by Davion Mitchell, the kid from Baylor. I mean, he's undersized, but he's a fierce defender. The Giddy kid from Australia is a big point guard. He's not a great shooter and not highly athletic, but he's super skilled. So there are a lot of different ways that you can go. And I'm sure that conversation they'll have with Rick Carlisle. What I like the best about Rick yesterday is everybody wants to pigeonhole him into style of play. And he said, look, I don't have a style of play. I can tailor the style of play around the roster that I have. And he goes, if I have Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis, doesn't mean I'm going to play like somebody else. And I really like that. I don't think
absolutely.
I don't think everything has to be a cookie cutter mold, or that you have to do what this team does. I think sometimes that can get you into trouble. I mean, everybody at some point wanted to play like Golden State, right? Well, not everybody has Klay Thompson or Steph Curry, right? Those are two guys that, play a certain way. So I liked what I heard from Rick Carlisle. He wants to take who he has, and then he will take his system and mold it around those players.
The other thing I liked about what he said, and this kind of, furthers your point on this, is he mentioned a couple times, I'm happy with what I have to work with. And it doesn't matter. He's not interested in going into a locker room and blowing it up. He wants Kevin Pritchard and some of the other guys to make those decisions. And he'll have some input. He'll have some say and give them their thoughts. But he's more than capable. He proved it in Dallas. He's worked with some really great players, some really good teams, and a variety of teams over his 13 years in Dallas, that he's comfortable with any roster. And again, I think he feels comfortable with the players that he's got in that locker room, but he kept harping on the point almost, not in a negative way, but we've got to be better communicators. We've got to be better playing with each other, because he mentioned Indiana can be a very physical team, and they have with Miles Turner being one of the best rim protectors in the NBA, there's potential there. But I really like the fact that he came in and was like, look, I'm not trying to blow this up. We might need to change some pieces here and there, but I'm comfortable with what I'm walking into, and I like this locker room.
Well, I think what happened last year is, again, Nate Bjorkgren from an offensive end. I thought he did a good job in creating opportunities. TJ McConnell flourished, Doug McDermott flourished, Sabonis had a great year, and I think offensively they were good. But I think the failure happened on the defensive end, and I think that's possibly where there was a lack of communication between coaching staff and players, and they were trying to play a certain way. And I've said this, they were trying to play like he coached defense in Toronto. Well, the problem is you didn't have Toronto's roster. You didn't have OG Anunoby. You didn't have Pascal Siakam. And they can defend a certain way. They can go out on the perimeter and defend and funnel you to the basket. That was not a strength of this Pacers team. They're not an overly athletic team. So you have to defend, I believe, a little differently. And that's what we saw 2 years ago when they were the sixth best defense in the league. They understood what they had, and they took those players and defended a certain way. And I think that's probably a mistake that Nate Bjorkgren made when he came in. He tried to force his model on a roster that not necessarily could do that. And I think that's what you heard from Rick yesterday. He has a way that he wants to play, but he's going to base that around the roster that he has, and then he'll fine-tune that. And that's one of the things that you have in a veteran head coach. He's been there. He's done that. He's had different rosters, so he understands what he has to do to tweak his system around the players that he has.
Robbie Sprint asked, will Cassius Stanley have a spot on the Pacers roster?
I think he does. I saw something on Twitter that he's really working with a shot doctor right now, because that's probably the thing that would hold Cassius back is, his offensive abilities. But he's one of the better athletic players on the team. I think he can be a good defender, and he would be somebody that I would think, again, he's a young player. He's only going into his second season, but he's somebody that, hopefully you can count on to maybe move into the rotation.
I was trying to look through the standings and the draft order and see who's the team that's kind of right there and may really benefit. And I'm thinking someone like the Pelicans, New Orleans Pelicans is a team they finished 11th and they've got a higher up draft pick. I mean, they're one of the teams that could really, depending on the right pick, they could really elevate their program, that franchise. But who do you think can really benefit the most out of this? And I know it's just a guess.
Yeah, you've got a lot of those the younger teams that have struggled of late. Detroit, looks like they're going to get Cade Cunningham. You've got Houston trying to add to their young roster. I think, guys, what people are going to look at is they're going to look at franchises like Atlanta. They're going to look at Phoenix. Those are two teams in the last 3 years prior to this year. They were 27th and 28th in record. Remember, they're only 30 NBA teams. So they were at the very bottom of the NBA. And here in 2021, they're in the Final Four. One of them is in the Final Two. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for teams now to look at and see what Atlanta has done. I mean, Atlanta hit on the draft. Sure, they got Trae Young, but John Collins and Kevin Huerter were both 19th picks in the draft. They were not lottery picks. And these are two guys that start on a team now in the Final Four of the NBA. So I think that's given a lot of credence to a lot of teams to know that you don't necessarily have to do it with a top 5 pick.
What do you got planned?
I was just gonna make one more point in the fact that the Pacers, despite not having a top 9 draft pick in I don't know since 1950,
1989.
I was close for the top of my head, but they've done a great job and they've found some gems in there. I mean, you look at Paul George, Danny Granger. I think they even drafted Karis LeVert before he was traded away. So they've been able to find and build some really nice pieces. And so that's why, we go back to the play-in tournament. A lot of people were talking about tanking and trying to increase your draft odds. I have a lot of confidence in this, even Miles Turner. I have a lot of confidence in this organization's ability to draft kind of in the middle of the pack and either find a diamond in the rough or find that nice piece that's going to fit into this team.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think this is a critical draft. But I think the most critical selection was made in the last week, and that's the head coach. I'm really bullish on what I think Rick is going to be able to do with this roster and how he'll fit in with the entire organization. He mentioned it yesterday. I asked him the question about what is he looking for as he puts together his staff, and he said the biggest thing is we have to communicate. We not only have to communicate with the players, but we have to communicate with the whole organization. And I think that comes from a veteran coach. He gets it. He understands what it takes. And again, you go back with the Dallas Mavericks in 2011, he won an NBA title. As an assistant, he got to the NBA Finals with Larry Bird and the Pacers. He was oh so close with the Pistons, had a 61-win team with the Pacers, and then won a title in Dallas. He knows what it takes. And I think that, to me, while the draft will be important here in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think the Pacers made a major step with getting Rick Carlisle.
Not often do you get an opportunity at a second chance in coaching in the professional ranks with the same pro franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very unusual. And for that second chance to be so welcomed by the ownership, the administration, the fan base, it's an unusual situation, I think, for Rick Carlisle. That it's so welcoming and ready for him. Because he was, like you said.
Yeah, I saw where Chris Ayers here said, who would have been your second choice for coach? And I do think we all believed it was going to be a veteran head coach, right? And a lot of the names out there, Steve Clifford, Terry Stotts, of course, with Indiana connections, Bloomington connections. But I think once Rick Carlisle stepped away from Dallas, I mean, it was over. It was over. I would have been surprised that it wasn't going to be Rick. So, there were a lot of, I think, very good candidates out there. And guys, that's the biggest change from a year ago.
Yes.
When they hired Nate Bjorkgren, and again, they wanted to go in sort of a different way with a younger coach, that type of thing. You just didn't have all of these head coaches available. I mean, Steve Clifford was in Orlando. Stotts was in Portland. Carlisle was in Dallas. And then all of a sudden, all of these coaches are available. It was a much, I think, easier time or easier opportunity for Kevin Pritchard and his staff. They knew they were going to get a really good head coach. And then once Rick got on the market, I think it was over.
Yep, they did not rush things. They took their time and made sure that they crossed the T's, dotted the I's, and got ready for 4th of July weekend, as are you. I hope you got nice plans where you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, we are heading away. We're heading to Michigan for a week. So look, I will not be joining you next Thursday. So I'll take the week off. Looking forward to tomorrow. Our oldest son and his fiance are flying in. They'll be going to Michigan with us. But my son and I are going to play Brickyard Crossing tomorrow. So his fiance and my wife and her mom and others will be out looking at wedding dresses. And Evan and I will be teeing up the little white golf ball.
Man, someone just asked me recently if I had played that course yet, and he's talking about it at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I have not played it. I'm looking forward to doing that. Is it 4 holes that are inside?
1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 4 holes. 4 holes.
4 holes on the inside of the
7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 7, 8,
I cannot wait. You've obviously played it before.
Yeah, I've played it a number of times, and I've heard Roger Penske's done a really good job with it. They are really investing in that course. So I have not played it since last year. We have our Pacers outing there every September. So I'm looking forward to playing it tomorrow.
Buddy, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Chris Denari from the that's right. Take a good vacation. Chris Denari from the Indiana Pacers joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. You got to take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for a relaxed...
They should do that at Daytona. They should have...
It's probably not... You think it's big enough?
Daytona?
How big's the track at Daytona? It's not
2.5 miles.
Oh, it is not.
Yes, it is. Yeah, definitely. I've been to Daytona.
What do you think Talladega is?
Talladega is huge,
600.
yeah, but I thought Daytona was like a mile and a half.
Oh no, it's 2.5 miles. It was probably not before Indianapolis, but it was built before Talladega, I think.
Only NASCAR race I've ever been to was the night race at Daytona about 10 years ago, I think.
I think Daytona was built around 59.
I got to step away really quick. I'll be right back.
You're good.
I'm sorry, I was off a year, 1958. The Outer Banks of Daytona International Speedway during its first repaving since it was built in 1958. Man, look at those old pictures. That is wild. Yeah, see, they got a gigantic lake inside Daytona because the hole they dug all the dirt to use in the corners for the banking.
I did not know that.
But it sucks. And Indianapolis doesn't have banking in the corners. They're like 9 degrees, so they were able to keep they didn't need to have.
Was Indianapolis designed as a IndyCar track before it was a NASCAR track? They've been running Indy for 150 years or however long. And I figured. I just wanted to clarify that. I've never been to the Indy 500. I've never been to the Kentucky Derby, and I've lived here my whole life.
What?
That is true.
Oh man, you've never been to the Indy 500?
Nope, I was telling him that or the Kentucky Derby.
Is it easy to get into the Kentucky Derby?
Cheap. So you can get like infield. They call it what is it called? Is this called the infield?
Yeah,
those are pretty cheap.
They get the infield and the Daytona was built in 1958, Talladega in 1969.
My first time at Churchill Downs was like.
I'm sorry, Talladega is not 2.5 miles. It's 2.66 miles.
All right, we got 10 seconds. Here we go.
It's number one Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Thursday. Hope you're doing well. Everyone getting ready for the July 4th weekend. Big, long one. Hope you have plans to do something fun and the weather holds out. We were having a debate in the break about the size of some speedways. Talladega is a 2.6 mile speedway, and I'm trying to get the exact length of Daytona. I think it is exactly 2.5, but where is this? The architect was Charles Moneypenny.
That's a great name.
How about that? Didn't know that. There we go. 2.5 miles. There you go. Exactly. Yeah, Talladega, 2.66. A little bit bigger. And the actual turns are a little bit steeper at Talladega, 31 degrees. But at Daytona, we were talking about playing golf at the Indy Speedway, where Chris Denari is going to be playing. They have room for 4 holes, but that's because of Daytona doesn't, because they have a gigantic lake, because they took that dirt and used it for the turns. They have 32 degree turns there. So I had to build all those corners up, and they had to get the dirt from. That's where the dirt came from. Indianapolis has 9 degree turns. So they needed very little to none dirt. So that's why that situation is there. Very cool that they could do that, have that golf course. I saw the Stones at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. July 4th, no less. Maybe 5 years ago this weekend. Huh? How about that? Just realized
you got the shirt.
I should have worn this. I just wore the shirt recently.
You did a couple weeks ago, I think.
I should have saved that for today, man. But what's everybody got planned for the weekend? Not a big sports weekend, luckily. Get to relax a little bit. The NBA playoffs, some baseball going on. But you can head over to thehoosier.com. Lots of information there. Offers continue to go out. I know there was another offer on the basketball side of things yesterday that Indiana has made to daggone, I'm drawing a blank on this. Oh, yeah. It's from the 2023 class. He's the top 100. Owen Freeman from the 2023 class made an unofficial visit. He goes to Bradley Bourbonis, Illinois high school. He's actually ranked number 93. Dave Fife has watched him earlier this summer. He's been in contact with him. Dame was on the show yesterday, of course. On his visit, Freeman was extended the offer by head coach Mike Woodson, and that's on an unofficial visit, which is pretty good. He told thehoosier.com he's very grateful and felt blessed after Coach Woodson offered. I love what he is trying to do with the program and the ideas he has for the future. This kid is a 6'9", 250-pound center. Okay. He's got beef on him. Normally, these kids out of high school are 6'9" and 210, 220, maybe. 230. I better put my glasses on. I think it's 230, 220, rather. But that's muscle. He's got some muscle on him. He's going to grow. He's received offers already from Indiana, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Marquette, Purdue, Ohio State, Northwestern, basically the Big Ten, Butler, Wake Forest, Iowa, and Illinois. So a bulk of the Big Ten already on this kid. He met with I met with Coach Fife and Coach Walsh, and they introduced me to the rest of the coaching staff and Coach Woodson. Then I had a photo shoot, campus visit, watched practice. After the practice, I sat down with Coach Woodson, and there's plenty of more. But he's very high on Indiana. Alec Glasley has a good story on that. Go to thehoosier.com for all that. And there's a special that you can get with them as well. But the offers continue. And I saw comments about there are a lot of offers out. But the goal for Indiana is, and now, first of all, you have the transfer portal. So there's always going to be an unknown. You don't know what you're going to have. You're going to have an idea what you're going to have. You're going to have an idea who is going to leave via the draft, or you're going to have an idea who might leave for other reasons, but you're never going to know for sure. They're going to be going after 2 players per position for a couple reasons. Number one, because it doesn't always work out, but number two, who wants it more? Who wants to be there? It's not those days of entitlement. They're over. If you're even on the team, the minutes of entitlement, it's over. You got to fight. You're going to have to fight every day. You're going to have to fight in practice. You're going to fight for your position, for playing time. You're going to have to fight for your scholarship. That's what this staff wants, because iron sharpens iron, as you hear the cliche, but it's true. If you want the best, you have to have the best practicing against the best. Those guys fighting. You want this guy fighting this guy for his minutes, because if he outplays him, well, he's going to get him. And if he's pushing this guy and he just gets better, well, your team just became better. That is the strategy for if you're wondering.
Yeah, and we've talked about Indiana being able to go 8, 9, maybe 10 deep this year and really
without question
extend that bench, and that's something they haven't had in the past. So, and you've even mentioned before, Mike Woodson probably not going to be afraid to alter some lineups if guys aren't playing well. If there's going to be a matchup situation that causes a problem, he's going to be willing to insert some of those guys. And I think that Indiana is going to have the kind of talent where you can have interchangeable. You'll probably at some point settle on a pretty consistent starting 5 at some point in the season. But I think you're going to have some players that are interchangeable where you say, this guy's skill set is going to cause a problem for another team. So he's going to get the start tonight. I don't think you're going to see any fear in that. That's stuff that you have to see in the NBA sometimes. And he's obviously dealt well with that. And again, just the pool, the depth that you have from the top to the bottom is so much better than what you had. and these players are going to start to get development. And so when you kind of mix that all together, having the experience in the transfer portal, having new coaching, better development, and offering some of these recruits, I think top to bottom, Indiana's roster is going to be so much better. I don't think it was bad. I just don't think it was developed. And like you said, we'll see. You're going to see some of that Indiana grit back. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Without question. We talked all about, name, image, likeness earlier. And at the end of the day, I don't know how much that's going to play into it because the right fits. Tom Allen uses it all the time. You got to get the right fits. It's the same with everything. You got to get the players who want to be here, who are going to play best for you. And that other stuff, that's why Indiana's out in front of that to get that taken care of. It shouldn't be an issue. But if you want to get to the next level, the culture change. Again, someone said it the other day. Culture is such an overused word, but it's not an overused thing. They were talking about Tom Allen because it's real, because it's tangible, and Mike Woodson's trying to create a tangible culture here, not with words and things, but with actions. Not that Tom Allen doesn't have actions; he does. He backs up his words, but just by what they're doing. And I think they're going to be successful in doing that. You talk about, the football side. There's a kid that just visited from Utah. I just talked about the other day, a kid is fighting for a kid in, it's in Arkansas. They've already been throughout the South, but they're spreading even further. Utah, come on. Why is a kid from Utah going to look at Indiana? You've got BYU. You've got all those West Coast teams. He's a lineman. Looking at Indiana. That says a lot to me. His dad is his high school coach for his position. That says a lot. He visited Bloomington and told the Hoosier.com that he had a great time with all the coaches, that the visit was awesome. I mean, that is what you get all the time. And that starts to change things. When you get guys from Utah, it's so out of the norm for an Indiana recruit. You know what I'm saying? Arkansas. They've got the Florida pipeline going. That was the first of it. That really changed things. Then it started spreading out throughout the Southeast. Arkansas. Man, Utah just adds a whole different element to it.
Right. And what you see is Tom Allen, when he came there, he had those Florida connections. He had that pipeline that he could establish. And so really what his goal was to recruit Florida well, and then to recruit Indiana well, get some of those top in-state players. And then when you assemble your new staff, and then when you start winning, we've seen guys like, as we mentioned, Delon McCullough has connections out in California after coaching for USC. He was with the Kansas City Chiefs. Kevin Wright, the tight ends coach, he was the IMG Academy coach for the longest time. He has Florida connections. Kevin Peoples, defensive line coach, he's got connections to Louisiana. So when you start to expand this step, we talked about it on the basketball end. You have guys who have experience in the Midwest, in the South, out West. You need that on a football staff too. And it's a little bit more difficult because you have to start winning on the football end, and you have to do it consistently year after year after year. And it depends on so many different players. If you're on the basketball floor and you get one or two guys, you might be golden for 2 or 3 years. You might be in really good shape, but you have to get a lot of really good football players. And so what you're starting to see is not only are they getting better recruiters, not only do they have recruiters who have experience in these other states, but that brand, that Indiana, that pitchfork logo is starting to get recognized. That LEO is starting to get recognized. And that's what happens when you put together an 8-5 season, a 6-2 season. You would have liked to cap those seasons with some bowl victories, but at the very least, you're producing a winning team. Your head coach was the Big Ten Coach of the Year, and you're starting to build this culture. And it's starting to become a recognizable brand, and that's huge. And that's why you're starting to see kids from Arkansas, Utah, California, kids that typically don't have much interest in Indiana, starting to at least consider Bloomington as an option to play college football.
Yeah, when we come back, we're going to talk about exactly what Indiana football and Indiana basketball needs to do to go to the next level next season. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking for a...
Sorry, what did that comment say? If you can beat Cincinnati and win 4 games against Iowa, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, they will even go to the next level. A lot of momentum right now. Yeah, I'd agree with that. So you win 3 out of those 5 games?
I'm not satisfied. Yeah, well, yeah.
Listen to this, y'all. This isn't about the same thing, but it's about the NIL stuff. Michigan State football player Matthew Coughlin, he just tweeted this out. This is a paid tweet to tell you to listen to the Locked On Spartans podcast. I've never listened to it, but I'm sure it's not terrible. My goodness.
How much do you think they paid him to do that? 20.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, who thought? Let's call up a football guy. I bet it was like $50, $100 between there. Couldn't have been much, especially for a tweet that's that uninspiring.
I bet it wasn't even 100. I bet it was a 20 spot.
You think? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, plus, it's not like Michigan State football and whoever this Matthew Coughlin guy is. He can't be amazing, could he?
He literally had to do nothing. He just opened up his phone and sent out a tweet. I can't imagine. But
it's got right now, and it's only been about an hour since the tweet's gone out. It's got 102 retweets, 103 quote tweets, 910 likes.
Yeah. But see,
you got Jim over here looking through his phone to see which players he can ask for a $50 spot on Twitter right now.
Well, I'm just gonna say, you got if you're able to do 5 of those though, that's $100. That's what I'm saying. Not to even leave you don't have to get up. You don't have to leave your apartment. You're just like, okay, I'm gonna sit here and make $20. I don't think that stuff's going to last very long, though.
Yeah, I don't know, especially if everybody's doing it. Like, if you see every other tweet is something stupid like that.
Well, and to a certain point, it's good now. It gets the name out. But if those guys aren't, I have no idea if they're good at podcasting or not. But you have to be good at it. Otherwise, people aren't.
Yeah, of course. Of course. All right, I'm going to bring us back in.
Night with a family, meeting for lunch, hanging with friends, or on the golf course, Sam's Restaurants has multiple locations and something for everyone. Sam's Restaurant in Fishers has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Thursday. A lot of talk about the NIL because there's just so much of unknowns about it. But now we're talking, what does Indiana football and basketball have to do to get to the next level this season? Football first. There was a comment by, where is it? Tony? Is it? There we go. Chris said, if IU can beat Cincinnati and win 2 of the 4 against Iowa, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, they go to the next level. I think you need to focus more on the Penn State, Michigan State, Iowa State side because it's your divisional side. But I want to see them win 3 out of those 4. Now that's me. I'm always pushing the envelope. But they did this last year for the most part. But now you're adding fans. That's going to change everything.
Yeah.
You're going to an Iowa Niall Kinnick Stadium that is going to be – they've been held out of football. They like their football out there. They've been held out of not going. But there's a lot of emotion in this game. I don't know. The players, it's probably more so for the fans than the players. The Bartabeau, all that Bartabeau stuff.
You're right.
Gary Barta, the AD. But you know what? The importance of this game, if they win at Iowa, buddy, that starts the rocket. It doesn't send the rocket up. That starts the engines. You have now ignite engines. If you win at Iowa, that ignites the engines on that rocket. You come back home, you beat Cincinnati. The Rockets, the things are falling away, and then you go and you knock off Penn State and a Michigan. That Rocket's going on its way. I don't care what you do with Ohio State as long as you don't get blown out. But they have to take care of business on the underside. And by that, I mean Michigan State, Penn State. You got to take care of that.
I think to an extent, this is probably the most important season opener for Tom Allen that he's had there. And he's had some important games. His very first game as the head, his very first game as the
They were big. I don't know how important they were because they didn't really have the talent, but they were big games. Yeah,
they were big games. They played Ohio State, and then last year, obviously, they opened the year with Penn State. So they've had some big week one games, but this one in terms of importance, because there's an expectation that you're going to go to Iowa, and I don't know if Indiana's going to be favored or not, but there's an expectation by the fan base that you should go into Kinnick Stadium and win that game. And then a few weeks later, you come home and you're going to play a top or a ranked Cincinnati team that people are going to expect you to win that game. So it's going to be incredibly important. And some of the biggest games that Indiana is going to play are on the road. If I'm not mistaken, they'll play Iowa, Michigan, and Penn State on the road. And so, as you mentioned, it's a lot different playing those games in front of an empty stadium than it is in front of 100,000 people. So there's a lot of pressure entering that first game, but I do think that the importance of winning last season, it kind of got the monkey off their back a little bit because Indiana had always fallen short against Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State. They couldn't quite get over the hump. They had come close. And so I'm interested to see, now that that pressure is kind of off of them, how do they handle this new pressure? Because they're no longer, well, to an extent they are, but they're kind of the hunted. I mean, Penn State that's going to be a circled game on Penn State's calendar because of how they lost last year. Iowa isn't going to overlook Indiana. Michigan, because of what happened last season, that's going to be another big game for Jim Harbaugh. That could be a job. His job could ride or die on that game. So there's a lot of really important games. There's a lot of stakes. I agree. I think if you win 3 out of those 5, you're in good shape. You'd like to win 4, but I think 3, you would say that again about any other time in Indiana history, and you'd be celebrating for days if you could win 3 of those games. So I think 3 is still attainable. If more of those games were at home, I would probably agree with you, but going to Michigan, going to Penn State, going to Iowa, that's tough.
The funny thing is, should have won at Ohio State last year. I mean, it's easy to say should have, but you know, they had a pick 6. You had a fumbled interception in the red zone and a fumbled catch in the red zone. They lose by 1 score.
Mm-hmm.
So that's hard to deal with. The year before at Penn State, same thing. They've shown they can do it. They can be there. They haven't shown they can finish because this is going to the bowl game situation. Haven't finished yet. Got to finish. That's another thing. Must get to a bowl game, a good bowl game, and win that thing. Win that thing. Last year was just a weird lack of fun. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened last year at the bowl game.
I can tell you Michael Penix wasn't on the field, and that's what happened, in my opinion.
Well, that yes. I mean, I kind of had forgotten about that just because you'd started dealing without it. But against an Ole Miss, that's a team they should have beaten. But when you're going against a wounded Lane Kiffin who knows he's going to have to do some stuff, that's dangerous, and it was dangerous.
It was, and the thing about that game too, and not that we need to harp on that loss, is Lane Kiffin is one of the best schemers. I don't think he's appreciated as a schemer. And when you give him that time to prepare, I mean, we saw why he's a really good football coach in that game. And so not having Michael Penix, I think, was kind of a doomsday situation for that game. But I would argue almost, I mean, you have, in my opinion, Indiana, there's no reason you can't get to 8 or 9 wins this season, but you have to win that bowl game. That's almost more important than winning 3 out of those games, because you have to prove that you can do it in the postseason. You haven't won a bowl game in 30 years. So you've got to get over that hump too. That's got to be priority. Well, I don't know if it's priority number 1, because you got a 12-game schedule. But that has to be one of the biggest goals in that locker room this season, is getting to a good bowl game and winning it, because then that gives you even more momentum heading into the next season.
Okay, on the basketball side, Tennessee sent, I think next year must get is a power forward, a couple 6'8", 6'9" guys, plus a center, he says. Chris Ayers, to me, Jalen Washington is the must-have recruit because he's from the region, and IU is never recruited Fort Wayne or above well, even under Knight. Now, hopefully, Fife can help with that. They haven't. Well, that's with good reason. You've got Notre Dame and Purdue up there. But Jalen Washington is more of a national recruit, definitely. Saw him play last Sunday against Xavier Booker. Xavier Booker looks really, really good as well. 2 similar players. But, yeah, those are both guys that are going to be big-time pieces for Indiana. But that's recruiting. I am serious. I do not think recruiting is ever going to be a problem for Indiana again. Not right now. These kids have shown, hey, we're coming to look at Indiana. Doesn't matter where they're from, because it has what they need. They want to get to the next level. It has that. It has all that and more. So there's no issues. Indiana is a place where they can achieve that. It was not very much before. And I've said this before. Look at schools. Use Purdue as an example. How many players do they have in the NBA right now? 2 versus Indiana's what, 8 or 9? It's the facts speak for themselves, man. And that was before Mike Woodson got here. So I think that is just going to continue to carry weight. The success of that program, I think, is going to improve quickly.
But doesn't that speak to the complete lack of development on Indiana? Yeah. It's almost like Michigan football, in the sense that Michigan still gets the 4- and 5-star recruits. They still are competitive with Ohio State every year in terms of the number of players drafted. But this time in the middle, they can't beat Ohio State. They can't win a Big Ten title. Well, Indiana still gets the recruits. They're still producing NBA talent at a fairly high level, not at Kentucky or North Carolina levels, but at a fairly high level. So what's happening at this time in the middle? And at the end of the Tom Crean era, and then all throughout the Archie Miller era, you just didn't have that development. That wasn't happening. So that's why I say to me, that's even more important than the recruiting. You were still getting some of those guys. You had really talented guys. They just weren't performing when they were in Bloomington. And I don't think
I said it for 2 years. I said it for 2 years. But more importantly, those guys at the top and upper end, those other guys are not getting developed for when they come up to replace or replenish or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's a constant void. There's always a vacuum without that constant churn of up level of talent coming up. They have that now. It's going to be, even when you're going to be bringing in constant new pieces, but you've got the constant pieces that are here as well. They have to also improve and consistently improve. That will happen now. And if it doesn't, they won't be here.
Right.
It's that simple. I want to make sure we don't go over. But yeah, I don't see that as being a problem. This staff is one that promotes that. This staff is one that promotes growth. This staff is one that promotes, hey, this is what we can do for you, but this is what we need from you.
Right.
It's not going to be a question. They're not going to not know. They're going to know exactly what they need to do and how they need to do it.
Well, and I think that's where Dane Fife coming in, having experience playing under Bob Knight and working under Tom Izzo, guys have roles. And so while you need to have, or you don't, I'll argue against this, you don't need to have that 5-star guy. You like to have those top end recruits. But if you have a roster full of guys who know their role, you can still be a really successful team. I mean, Michigan State, yeah, they usually get 1 or 2 stars, but that's a team where they know their role and they continually usually get better throughout the course of the season. And so that's why I say I think the development's going to be there. And I think this coaching staff will help guys understand their role. And that to me is more important than the number of stars beside a kid's name when he's coming up and visiting Bloomington.
Absolutely. We've seen that. It's all about development. Man, it's been a blast of a day as always. Tons of fun. Matt Taylor was back. Chris Denari was with us. And of course, it's always a blast when Dustin's with us. You'll be back tomorrow, right?
I'll be back tomorrow.
As before we head out for the July 4th holiday. So we'll be back tomorrow to do it again. I think Zach Osterman will join us as well. Alec Lasley, so we can wrap up with some recruiting talk for the end of the week for you. Send you out on the weekend with all that. And hopefully a good day. But until then, for Dustin, as well as Matt and Mr. Denari, I'm Jim Coyle and John the producer. I will see you on the radio.